Welcome to the, I'll open the June 28th business meeting and welcome you all to the meeting and ask Don Krupp, our administrator, please take the roll.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. Of course, this is the very last board business meeting of the fiscal year. And, beginning next week, we start a new fiscal year. However, I will make an early announcement that the Board of County Commissioners will not be meeting on Thursday of next week. So just want to make sure that folks know, yes. Okay, we have joining us Mr. Stephen Madcore, representing County Council Office, and we have Mary Rathke serving as your clerk to the board. I'm going to start with the roll here with Commissioner Humberston.
Here.
Commissioner Schrader.
Here.
Commissioner Savas.
Here.
And Commissioner Fisher. Chair Bernard.
Here, please join me in a pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Well, first up, this is going to be a long meeting. We have citizen communication, and Bob O'Black and Carl Exner, come on up. So give us your name and basic location where you're from. And I noticed one's from Molalla and one's from Sandy.
Go first. I can go first. Carl Exner. I'm representing today Windermere Real Estate in Sandy, Oregon, 38720 Proctor Boulevard. This morning, I wanted to just kind of say thank you first off, because I know an email I sent out earlier on this subject to the commissioners responded several times, and I appreciate the positive feedback. But I just wanted to place a little context on the need that I have. I'm representing a client who wants to sell a house on 64820 East Riverside in Brightwood, Oregon. And as I understand it from one of the agents that I was working on trying to find lots to move some pumps from one spot in the Sandy River out of the floodplain into a location that's not, that my client, who has got it for sale, using me as his agent, is one of the choices. And because I understood there was some delay, some time required to make that decision, it's put kind of a burden on my client in that those who have looked at the property and want to make an offer, I have a list of realtors who want to make an offer, because I've disclosed the fact that the county may be interested in purchasing this property to move these pumps to, they have declined to make an offer. So where we are, we kind of sit here at a time where we'd love to be able to sell the house. That's my client's intention, and I would love to be able to do that for him, but because of the uncertainty about which lot was chosen, I think there's 4 possibilities, one of which is my client's, that we still haven't made a decision yet. And I know there's been some discussion already for it, but I want to just put the context out there that we would like to see a decision made soon, one way or the other, whether you're going to go forward on our property that is for sale right now, or move to another lot, another house in one of those 4 choices. And it just really would make a world of difference in our ability to be able to sell the house.
All right, we'll certainly look into that. One concern is, of course, we can make an offer. They may not accept it, and we'd have to move on to the next lot. Sure. So that might be a problem. Sure. But we have had this discussion, and I don't know if it's those lots or anything about that, but we'll see what we can do.
Okay, I appreciate that. I know you'll look into it. All we're asking is that there be some sort of indication of which direction so we can move forward some way or another.
Okay.
Thank you.
Appreciate it, Carl. Yep.
Sounds very reasonable.
Yeah. Bob.
Yes. My name is Bob O'Black. I live at 33125 South Dickey Prairie Road. And I'm here to kind of get educated on marijuana grow operations. I was next door to planning, and there's a 58 acres that is going to have a site for marijuana grow. So I want to compliment and let you know that Liz Elizabeth Dance over here has been very helpful this morning. Just want her name recognized as being a good servant and very helpful in giving me information on what our property rights are surrounding Marijuana Grow. As I understand it, this is a complaint-driven code enforcement. In other words, you're not really out there monitoring the requirements based on planning's authority to give them to put the operation on. So my purpose for understanding what code requirements are was satisfied by Liz this morning. She was very helpful in that. And I already discovered that they're putting 2 structures that without a permit. And so they're going to be notified that they need to get a permit to put storage containers on the property. Anyway, so I did discover that there was an issue that they need to take care of. When I appealed in front of the county board in 1983 to build my house, to get a building permit, the permit was denied, and I sat in front of the commissioners in 83, noting that this property was given to me through inheritance and wanted to build a home on it. And I was required to make sure I complied to certain, because it's a river area, there's Molalla River there, and had to make sure it was brown and fit into the environment. Well, these 2 storage containers that are next door to my house are orange, bright orange, next to a historic farm barn. And it's very picturesque. I've had multiple people stop and take pictures of the barn, and now these 2 orange containers are sitting there, storage containers large as, a train car. And it just kind of ruins the beauty of Dickey Prairie Road. So I mentioned that to her, and she said she'd talk to the owner. So I guess the only other thing I'd like to note is that since this is a type 1 requirement, we weren't notified that the operation was taking place. So I don't know if things can be changed, but type 2, to put a house on, you have to notify your neighbors. But to put structures to grow marijuana, I guess you don't have to notify your neighbors. So I think that's an issue that the county should consider changing the requirements to notify property owners next door to a grow operation. The other 2 things I'd like to mention is I'd like to mention Ken. I was at the Hamlet meeting, and I want to congratulate him on his openness to invite me to the council meeting, and he was very helpful in just explaining things, and you got a great council person here. And lastly, you paved Fire Park Road. I want to thank you for doing that. It's a great looking road, and also want to congratulate the County Parks Department for taking care of Fire Park. It's part of the land that was donated from my family, and it's under good stewardship with the Clackamas County Parks Department. So you've got a good team going. Thank you. That's really all I have.
I appreciate you coming today.
You bet.
Thank you very much. Next up is Nancy Hall and Les Poole. Nancy, you're up first.
All right. Nancy Hall, Happy Valley. At the June 21st Board of County Commissioners business meeting, citizens were subjected to an extended political discourse that had nothing to do with county business. The statement read and endorsed by this board was intended to seem altruistic and innocent, but its underpinnings are pure politics. This is not the first time this board has been political. This time, the board decided to wade into the current political issue regarding illegal alien children at the border. The board opposed a doctrine of federal immigration law. It's important to note that the policy the board was opposing is not new and has been on the books many years. It was in effect during the Obama administration. In fact, Jay Johnson, Secretary of Homeland Security in the Obama administration, admitted the Obama administration did exactly what the Trump administration is being criticized for, and they believed it necessary. Since it's been established that the Democrats not only knew about this policy, but in fact enforced this policy, why is this non-news story being hyped up now? It's because the phony mainstream media had to manufacture a crisis to help their fellow regressives by giving them a platform to use in an attempt to revive and advance their losing agenda. The definition of nonpartisan is free from party affiliation, bias, or designation. Every commissioner on this board ran as and was elected to be nonpartisan. It is wrong for this board to sit up there in those nonpartisan chairs and use them as a bully pulpit to spew out political rhetoric. Do political posturing on your own time. Should this board continue their unethical behavior of being political and partisan, it will be required to give equal time and opportunity to differing viewpoints. This is not a venue for pushing party politics. Keep the lid on Pandora's box.
Isn't that what you're doing right now?
No,
Equal
I'm
time?
responding to you.
Oh, so, you know, the Constitution allows us freedom of speech just like you, whether we're elected or not. We allow you every Thursday to come up and tell us what you feel. I don't see the difference. And it's not that we surprised.
Perhaps you can give us enough time to come up and have differing views. I think you took like 15 or 16 minutes last week. So if you were willing to give a differing view that amount of time, I think fine.
5 of us times 3 is 15, so we used 3 minutes each on average. Well, I appreciate it. Thank you for your comments. Les.
4th of July is coming. I usually wouldn't use the cliche, but that's a tough act to follow. And regardless of whether you agree with her, I watched closely last week before I spoke, and there was no acknowledgement that the law had changed. We heard Commissioner Humberson claim that, well, the kids are locked up. Well, that's not cool, but we got them locked up right down the street in Woodburn. Sometimes it's a harsh reality, and leaving them locked up indefinitely or mistreating them is unconscionable. But when they're showing up at the border, you don't cite and release them, Chair Humberson. You know why? Because they're minors and you're turning them loose on the street in a country they don't belong in. And who sent them there? So we could have a big, long discussion about it, because I certainly share sentiments and concerns about how our government, regardless of which party is in control of how our government sometimes operates. And this is a trust issue. It really is. And I'm sure we're going to hear comments when I'm done. I've got 1:40 left, and I've got 3 minutes worth of speaking to do, so I better get to it. Last Tuesday, there was a work session about our roads and about our budget. I don't have time to stay today. I got to go fight traffic. And in fighting traffic, while I sit there, of course, I think about what I've been talking about here and been involved in for almost 4 years, and that's addressing the roads. And it might be jumping over the line there to start talking about the transportation budget, but I'm pleased with what's been done. Kudos to the Transportation Department for that. And I wish I could stay to testify on that whole budget issue. But on Tuesday at the meeting, it was clear that the head of the Transportation Department isn't comfortable with the $17 million shortfall number that we keep hearing and we've been hearing. And that needs to be reined in and honed in. If there isn't a deep understanding of how far we really are behind and whether the numbers that's on that poster that's been back there forever, what those numbers really are. The commission and the citizens inherited a mess. We're not going to fix it easily. Again, I'm pleased with that aspect of it. And I would really hope that we can stay on the issues the county must address in your charter. And you're certainly welcome to have free speech, especially at the end of the meeting in your comments. But you are elected officials. You've taken an oath. And with all due respect, Chair, there is a difference. There's a big difference. Thank you for your time. I hope everybody has a good holiday.
So Les, sometimes you go to the C4 retreat?
Excuse me?
Don't you sometimes come to the C4 retreat?
No, I never have.
Oh, I thought you had.
I do try to follow what's going on there, but,
The reason I said that, and there will be another work session where we'll talk about transportation a little deeply. The purpose was to kind of give us an outline. So there was I would say a resistance to get too deep into the issue. We'll have a work session and talk deeper and more publicly about that issue. So I'll make sure you're invited.
well, that'd be great. And I know Commissioner, my time's up, but Commissioner Savas commented about, let's hone that number and let's figure out where we really are.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, the
Yeah.
public, it won't be comfortable. So thank you again.
Paul's working on this every day, so I'm not sure we'll ever hone that number down, but we're working on it. All right, with that, thank you, and we'll move on to public hearing, and Administrator Krupp.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Of course, we have a number of public hearings this morning, the first of which is to consider first and second reading of an ordinance amending Chapter 6.06 Park Rules of Clackamas County and declaring an emergency. And we have Mr. Jeff Munns here from County Counsel's office to speak to this issue. The Board of County Commissioners did get a chance to hear a little more about this earlier in the week.
Morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. You have a draft of the proposed changes to Chapter 606 of the County Code. I believe they're in front of you for the park rules. And we had a brief discussion about this at Issues on Tuesday. And this is a process to adopt these as an emergency and to read it by title today, and for them to discuss that matter.
That's your presentation?
That's pretty much a presentation. It's pretty brief. I think that without going through the changes to the rules in depth, if you'd like me to, I'm happy to.
Well, I don't know that we need it, but briefly, it allows us to hire outside security, correct?
Yeah, that's one of the changes. We have a number of updates in this code to update some of the definitions, to update some of the ways in which alcohol are monitored in the parks, to restrict the use of remote-controlled devices, toys, and so on in the parks, as well as to add some language for the Director of BCS to designate an agent to hire outside security to augment the Sheriff's Department's reserve deputies in enforcing the park rules throughout the summer.
Yeah, and the reason it's an emergency is July 4th is around the corner. This tends to be the biggest weekend of the year if the weather's good. So we don't normally go the emergency route, but in this case, because July 4th is so close, that's why we chose this direction.
That is correct. We'd like to get those folks working in the parks this weekend.
All right. Are there any additional questions or clarifying questions from the commissioners? Seeing none, I'll open the public hearing and ask if anyone would like to testify on this matter. Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing and entertain a motion.
I move we read the ordinance by title only.
Second.
Moved and seconded that we read the ordinance by title only. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, I'll ask the clerk to assign a number and read the ordinance by title only.
Okay, this is going to be ordinance number 07-2018, an ordinance amending Clackamas County Code, Chapter 6.06, Park Rules, and declaring an emergency.
I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move we adopt the ordinance amending Chapter 6.06 Park Rules of the Clackamas County Code and declaring an emergency.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we adopt the ordinance amending Chapter 6.06 Park Rules for Clackamas County Code of the Clackamas County Code and declare an emergency. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Thank you very much. That's it, right? I know that went pretty fast. All right.
I know you have a lot to do. Thank you.
You. Okay, the next item is 12 public hearings that are related to the budget. And I'm going to turn this over to the administrator to start us on this journey.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Of course, the Board of County Commissioners will be changing hats here several times during the course of the next set of proceedings. What we're here to do today is to take action to adopt and implement the budget for fiscal year 2018-2019. And we have present here our budget manager, Diane Padilla, who we will be counting on to provide much of the presentations here that we will have for each of the public hearings that the board will be considering. I should also make mention as we get started, this budget development process all the way through involved some 8 different budget committees, which include a total of 40 citizen representatives that partner with the 5 county commissioners, each sitting in their respective roles to deliberate on the total budget that the county is responsible for carrying out. So, but with this, before we actually get started, it's important to make mention that this is Diane Padilla's very last budget approval for Clackamas County. She is officially retiring, I think, as of today, although we will be borrowing her for a month this coming month to help us with a whole host of things that need to be undertaken, and maybe again in the future as well. But I think we, in order to kind of make this the festive affair it really ought to be,
Oh. Oh. Here we go. Oh, gosh.
we probably should put them in between you and Stephen so we don't.
Where's out of the way here?
Excellent.
Now we're not sure. Are they Stevens?
So I'll go ahead and announce the first item, and then I'll invite Diane to present it to you. The first item is a resolution adopting the Clackamas County budget for the 2018-2019 fiscal year, making appropriations and imposing and categorizing taxes for the period of July 1st, 2018 through June 30th, 2019. And you have the floor.
Thank you, Commissioners. I'm here to request adoption of the fiscal year 2018-19 budget for Clackamas County. This is the final step, as Mr. Krupp mentioned, in a multi-step public process. This is the budget that was approved by a budget committee consisting of the county commissioners and an equal number of citizen volunteer members. They held public meetings from May 29th through June 6th. And during these sessions, they heard presentations from departments, asked their questions, received public testimony, considered policy level proposals, deliberated, and then amended and approved a budget. This is the budget that was published in the Lake Oswego Review on June 21st, and it does include the changes made by the Budget Committee. This budget also includes the Budget Committee's acceptance of the recommendation of the Compensation Board for elected officials to make salary adjustments to the assessors, clerks, commissioners, district attorneys, justice of the peace, and treasurer's salaries, and includes acceptance of the recommendation of the county administrator to grant a 2.8% cost of living adjustment for non-represented employees. This is as adjusted using the Consumer Price Index West Urban Rate annual average from the previous year. To establish the budget, there are 4 specific actions that need to be taken today. Adopt the budget in the amount of $846,819,667. Make appropriations in the amount of $789,491,512. The difference being $57,328,155 in reserves, which is not being appropriated and will not be spent in this next fiscal year. We also need to categorize the permanent rate taxes and the local option tax as falling under the general government limitation for Measure 5 purposes, and the levy for general obligation bond indebtedness as excluded from that limitation. And finally, to impose the county's maximum permanent tax rates of $2.4042 per $1,000 of assessed value in cities that have 24-hour police patrol services, and $2.9766 per $1,000 of assessed value in all other areas of the county. Also levy 24.8 cents per $1,000 of assessed value in the county for public safety via a local option levy, and levy an amount of $4,937 for debt service on general obligation bonds. And with that, I respectfully request adoption of the 2018-2019 budget for Clackamas County.
Okay, so I actually have something I want to do on this issue. First, open the public, any questions? So I have one. And I'd like to pull out the portion with regards to the county commission and the assessor and everybody's raise, because I think otherwise we could declare a conflict of interest. I know that the overall budget committee voted for this. We had one member who did not. I mean, do you have an issue with voting on the whole, this budget, with that in it? The compensation?
Well, I have every year prior.
Yeah, so,
So I don't mind stating that, you know, that everything in the budget I am not perfectly okay with, and there
Okay.
are things in the budget that I'm not okay with. However, we can word it, but I did not necessarily need to.
Okay.
That did not change my vote last year supporting the budget with the acknowledgement of.
Okay.
You know, I think there's things in this budget we're all probably not totally comfortable with. I think that's a fair statement, right?
Yeah.
Unless it's my personal budget, apparently not. I
Yeah,
mean,
and as a matter of fact, I'll just take this opportunity to say that despite, you know, after we're going through, this is my 8th budget as a commissioner, and each year we've been progressively had less discretionary money for the board to direct in a way that steering it towards our priorities. And so I've expressed that despite some different opinions of how rosy things may be, that I don't think they're all so rosy. So I have concerns about that. And I understand projections and I understand those costs, but boils down to is that if the more discretionary money we have to steer towards our priorities, the more convinced I am that we're in a better position, and that's really not the case. And watching that level of money diminish has not been pleasant for me. So I know the budget is getting larger and our income's getting larger, but I think some of our problems in the community, the magnitude of those problems are just growing in significance. And I know that that is not a comfortable thing for me to say for others, but I'm going to say it.
well, I think I should counter-oppose that and say, this year we actually did have some discretionary money. We had marijuana money, approximately $1.2 million, which we worked with our partners in the various departments to figure out how to spend that. We also had $1.2 million for to address our housing shortfall, and one more. What was the other one?
You've got money set aside to build the capacity to be able to support the filling all of the jail beds.
Right. So we had a little bit more than we had last year, the year before last, definitely. But when we started, we did have more discretionary money. So I just just to counter that, so.
Yeah, and also to clarify, would be the door is open, is that, I think, again, to maybe say it a little bit more clear, I think some of our problems in the county and those folks that are not in the best position, that are struggling, whether they're people in poverty, the homeless, I think our problems are growing faster than we are being able to grow our monies to address those. So we're losing ground, and I think that's the point I just want to just clarify. It gives me some of my concern.
Appreciate that. All right, with that, I'll open the public hearing and ask if anyone would like to testify on this matter. Don't rush up here.
One at a time.
One thing I do want to add to, well, since no one's rushing up, I'm going to close the public hearing. One thing I want to add is I appreciate the people who attended our budget meeting. There have been many years that no one showed at all. So we did appreciate that, and we did make some adjustments. Yeah, we made some adjustments because of that testimony. We also increased the grant from $250,000 to $300,000, which I think very soon we'll be going out, letting people know we have a grant process to help in those areas for the most vulnerable. So, I mean, this year, and I also want to thank the Budget Committee for being there and their hard work. I know Wilda Parks, who was our chair this year, really enjoyed the process. So with that, I see we have a couple of lights. I think, Sonia, you were up first.
Yeah, I have one question. During the Budget Committee deliberations, we made a motion and gave instruction about how we're going to proceed at our first quarterly budget meeting. How does that get memorialized in the public record? I'm just curious about where that shows up, because I don't see it in our staff statement. I don't know if that gets written into the big budget document that.
It technically is not a part of the budget action, but it is direction from the Budget Committee that when we schedule your agenda for the first quarterly Budget Committee meeting, we would address the issues that the Budget Committee agreed to pursue. And principally what you wanted to do was to take an opportunity to look at how we're managing vacancies and to see whether or not department directors can identify the sources and the longevity of those vacancies and identify whether or not there's the ability through managing those vacancies to fill unmet needs. And that's direction from the Budget Committee. We will be following through and honoring that direction when we convene for the first quarterly meeting.
Okay, so it's not really memorialized anywhere in writing?
Not in the budget document
Not in the
itself,
budget document?
but it is an
or
action, part of the minutes from the.
There's
yes,
minutes for the Budget Committee. Okay, I was just curious about that. I
Excuse
just
me.
had a question. And then I'm not sure if I'm going to declare a potential, disclose a potential conflict if I do that now or I do that at what part in the process?
Well, I think you should.
Okay,
Do it
so
now.
right now, okay, just want to make sure I'm in the correct order. So for this part of the budget, I wish to disclose a potential conflict of interest based on an allocation in this budget to a program in which my husband, Kirk Mauser, is involved. And that is the Juvenile Department has a contract with the Clackamas County Arts Alliance, and he runs a Youth Theater for Change program that helps our juveniles do a theater production that happens in the summer. And so since he's involved in how all the funding streams work, I'm not quite sure, but I know that there's some county resources that go there, and I just want to declare that potential conflict of interest.
Yeah, I believe there are some Arts Alliance dollars
It's
through that, which are passed through to the Arts Alliance.
Yep.
And I think it's important to point out that that particular program preceded your stepping on to the Board of County Commissioners.
Yes, that's right.
Ken?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Not to engage in any protracted debate, but I'd just like to make some basic comments on the budget. As I'm sure we all know, that needs always outstrip income. We know how many people are out there or we have some idea of how many people are out there who are homeless, who have mental health needs, who have other kinds of housing needs. And we're working very hard to address those issues. But we had to do what is essentially a maintenance level budget. the discretionary funds that we did have were targeted on those areas that either came to us via the public, i.e. marijuana enforcement, which was a crucial issue that was repeatedly spoken to this year, as well as targeting some of our social network needs in very specific targeted areas, which is something that the board started on early this year. In terms of some of my own personal interests and values as a commissioner, I simply would like to say that I appreciate the effort, both financially and otherwise, that staff have gone through and this budget goes through to build the Vets Village that will help our homeless veterans, and continued funding for the Small Business Development Center's scholarships for veterans at Clackamas Community College. Any effort that we can make to help veterans, either those who are successfully transitioning back into society or those who are having difficulty as a veteran, I definitely appreciate, and this budget does do some of those things. Does it do as much as I would like? I suspect there's nothing in this budget for any of us that does everything as much as we would like. Roads being a classic case in point. We know we are behind. We know we need to spend a lot of money on roads, and it's going to take some hard work figuring out where we're going to get the money to do that. But at least we're making some progress in that direction. So, and I did want to commend your leadership and your leadership team in putting together a pretty decent maintenance level budget. I think that helps protect us a little bit from what can happen in the economy as we go forward, so that we don't, as somebody often says, get out over our skis. So, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, I'm sitting here debating whether I should say something, but I don't, this budget has nothing to do with people's salaries, except ours. So I have some conflict in voting for a raise of myself, but it was a 9-1 vote. And so and also my wife works here, and her budget is included in this. It doesn't address whether she gets a raise or not. What would you do? Thinking.
I, in an abundance of caution, would say that I, Chair Bernard, have a actual conflict because my wife is going to get financial benefit from the budget that we are adopting here, and I will recuse myself from further discussions with this budget, and I will not vote on this budget.
Okay.
That's what I would do. I'm not advising you on whether or not you have a conflict, potential or actual. That would be an ethics issue which is individual to the elected official. It is not necessarily legal guidance from county council. But in an abundance of caution for you, Chair, right now, I would say probably I would do the actual conflict.
Okay, so I'm going to do that. So I'm going to declare an actual conflict of interest and will not be voting on this matter. I'll be abstaining. So with that, I'll entertain a motion to adopt the budget.
And Mr. Chairman, I move we approve the actions and adopt the 2018-2019 budget for Clackamas County as presented in the resolution.
Second.
Been moved and seconded that we approve the action and adopt the 2018-2019 budget for Clackamas County as presented in the resolution. Any further discussion?
Yes. And so in acknowledgement of what we spoke about earlier and also acknowledgement of my comments, I just wanted to give compliments to the staff and especially the $1.2 million for the homeless efforts and the work that Commissioner Schrader and I have on this homeless housing committee that Dawn, our administrator, has convened, that we've been meeting once a month more. We've helped develop and shape that 1.2. And so I don't want to say that on one hand, as I mentioned, that we're losing grip of the problem. The problem's growing. Our challenges are growing at a faster rate than we have the means to address that. But in acknowledgement of the good work that staff and also the interdepartment work with each of those departments has been fantastic. So it's the first time in 8 years that I have really seen that much coordination between the departments on an effort like this. So I want to give kudos to that, and also acknowledgement for the budget, and Diane, your retirement. So I want to just say my personal thanks that my comments is not a reflection of any staff. It's just really the situation we have. So kudos to the staff for the work that they've done in that regard, and so that's what I had to say.
All right, Commissioner Schrader.
Well, I've kind of lost count about the number of county budgets that I've been doing since 2003, and then I did a state budget with a brief hiatus. And I have to say, I think that this budget process was one of the smoothest that I've seen, and I would like to thank our budget committee. They were excellent. They're an excellent group of citizens, include CPAs, people who have financial backgrounds that really help us come through the intricacies of what we have to do. They help us prioritize. They help us understand from the ground up what people really want to see their county doing. And I also want to thank Diane, because I remember when I was a new commissioner sitting with you more than once so I could really get my arms around. And after the whole budget process, and thank you so much for being a great tutor and a great colleague helping me do that. And yes, finally, after many years, you get it after a while. So enjoy your retirement, and thank you so much for your help through the years.
Great. So we're to the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining? Aye. With that, the budget passes. So in the future, there's a couple of the things I'd like to do, and we did this in the past. One thing is to separate out tourism, maybe, and the other is our compensation. Either that, or we can talk about, do we want to do it a different way? But I you know, because this budget's really great. I'd like to have voted for it. But in an abundance of caution these days, we are trying to, you know, separate these issues and be careful. And so for this reason, this is the first time I've ever abstained. And I actually have a really good argument why I shouldn't have. But that's for another day.
Mr. Chair, your spirit is with everyone. So
Thank you. Okay, so the next item is a resolution. Oh, well, go ahead, Don.
yes, okay. So the next item is a resolution adopting changed fees for Clackamas County for fiscal year 2018 and 2019. And we have Mr. Stephen Madcore, County Counsel, here to present this to you.
Morning, Commissioners. Every year, the county adjusts its fees by way of resolution. It would be effective July 1st. This year is no different. You have in front of you a resolution and an attachment which has the proposed fee adjustments. The fees range from permit fees to the fees we charge at our health clinics to fees we charge for recording at the clerk's office. If passed, these fees would be effective July 1st. I'm here to answer any questions the board may have.
Do any commissioners have any questions, discussion? All right, with that, I'll open the public hearing and ask if anyone would like to testify on this matter. Hold back the crowd. I'll close the public hearing and entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve and adopt the changed fees for Clackamas County fiscal year 2018-19 as presented in the resolution.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve and adopt the changed fees for Clackamas County fiscal year 2018-2019 as presented in the resolution. Commissioner Humberston.
Starts with an H. I just wanted to make a comment, maybe for the benefit of people watching or who may watch this on television and think with all of these budgets that we're going through so quickly here today, it might appear to them like, well, don't you pay any attention to the budgets themselves? The process took many, many weeks with 40 citizens, and so this is the, for lack of a better term, the pro forma exercise that you go to formally adopt these various budgets. The work of adopting these or preparing these budgets for adoption gets done prior to this particular meeting. And we would encourage people to attend those meetings, by the way, even though they can be boring, so you can really know how it works. But just so people understand that this is the pro forma exercise we have to do to actually formally make the decision to adopt these various budgets. That's all I have to say.
Anything else? With that, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. The next, I'd like to announce that the board will recess as the Board of County Commissioners convene as the Enhanced Law Enforcement District for the next item.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'm going to invite Ms. Diane Padilla back up to the dais. This is a consideration of a resolution adopting the Enhanced Law Enforcement District budget for the 2018-2019 fiscal year, making appropriations and imposing and categorizing taxes for the period of July 1st, 2018 through June 30th, 2019. Go right ahead, Diana.
Okay, thank you. The Enhanced Law Enforcement District was created by voters in 1995 with the goal of providing an improved level of patrol services in the unincorporated areas of the county within the urban growth boundary and Johnson City. The district will be able to support 36 sworn positions for fiscal year 2018-19, which is one more that has been supported in this past year, and the number has been rising over time. As was the case with the general Clackamas County budget, this is the final step in a multi-step public setting budget setting process. This is the budget that was approved by the Budget Committee, which met June 4th, which reviewed the budget, provided an opportunity for public testimony, deliberated, and then approved a budget. This approved budget was published in the Lake Oswego Review on June 21st. Again, there are 4 specific actions to be taken: adopt the budget, make appropriations in the amount of $7,360,027, categorize all tax revenue as falling under the general government limitation for Measure 5 purposes, and impose the district's maximum permanent tax rate of 71.98 cents per thousand of assessed value within district boundaries. And with that, I request adoption of the 2018-19 budget for the Clackamas County Enhanced Law Enforcement District.
So what's different over the years is in the motion, we actually used to say the rate, and now that's said by you, and we just make a motion. That's correct, right?
Yes.
Okay, that's what I thought. No, it's not?
No.
Why?
These motions have always been as they are today. We say you say as is presented in the resolution, which covers everything that's in that resolution.
Well, we'll have to debate that.
I'll bet you.
All right, it's a bet, quarter.
Okay.
All right, with that, I'll open the public hearing, ask if anyone would like to testify on this matter. Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Did you close the public hearing, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, didn't I?
No.
Oh, I went like that, so.
Okay.
I've closed the public hearing and entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve the actions and adopt the 2018-19 budget for the Clackamas County Enhanced Law Enforcement District as presented in the resolution.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the action and adopt the 2018-2019 budget for the Clackamas County Enhanced Law Enforcement District as presented in the resolution. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Now I'd like to announce that the board will adjourn as the Enhanced Law Enforcement District and reconvene as Clackamas County Extension and 4-H Service District for the next item.
Yes, thank you. So this is a resolution that would adopt the Clackamas County Extension and 4-H Service District budget for the 2018-2019 fiscal year, making appropriations and imposing and categorizing taxes for the period of July 1st, 2018 through June 30th, 2019. And once again, we have Ms. Padilla here to give you a presentation on this item.
Yes, the Clackamas County Extension and 4-H Service District was approved by voters in November 2008 to allow programs serving families, youth, and agricultural and natural resource operations in the county to continue and to grow. These services include 4-H programs, technical assistance, for farmers, family forest owners, nursery and Christmas tree growers, gardeners, and homemakers. Since the district's inception, it has also been accumulating resources toward its goal of building a new extension education center, will be built shortly, or started shortly here in the Red Soils campus. This 2018-2019 budget presented for adoption is as approved by the district's budget committee on June 4th and published in the Lake Oswego Review on June 21st. The actions to be taken are to adopt the budget, make appropriations in the amount of $8,742,490, categorize all tax revenue as falling under the general government limitation for Measure 5 purposes, and impose the district's maximum permanent tax rate of 5 cents per $1,000 of assessed value within district boundaries. And with that, I would respectfully request adoption of the 2018-19 budget for the Clackamas County Extension and 4-H Service District.
Does any commissioners have any clarifying questions? That, I'll open the public hearing, ask if anyone would like to testify on this matter. Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing and entertain a motion.
I move we approve the actions and adopt the 2018-2019 budget for the Clackamas County Extension and 4-H Service District as presented in the resolution.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the action and adopt the 2018-2019 budget for the Clackamas County Extension and 4-H Service District as presented in the resolution. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. And let me give Mary that quarter, because I just remembered something.
And the interest on that quarter is 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was actually a loan that occurred here.
Well, I now remember that during the budget process, we read that way. And it's this one it's already been voted on. This one we confirm. All right, with that, I'll announce that the board will adjourn as the Clackamas County Extension and 4-H Service District and convene as the Library Service District of Clackamas County for the next item.
Excuse me, could I take just a moment while I still have the mic? I just want to say I've enjoyed my service here. It's been a wonderful 22 years. I have enjoyed working with the county staff. They're all first rate. And particularly with the finance staff and my boss, these many years, Mark Gonzalez, and especially my own staff, who are just extraordinary, Roxanne Fisher and Jian Song. And I just want to say it's been a privilege and an honor, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate you.
So that actually was Diane's last actual presentation to the budget, on the budget. So I'm going to, and of course, Diane will be here during the course of this next month helping us out, and we expect to celebrate her service and her new endeavors here during the month of July. We will be able to do something for her, so good.
Great.
Okay, we have the Library Service District. I'm going to invite Laura Zentner up to the table. And you've convened as a Library Service District?
Yep.
Okay. So this is a resolution adopting the Library Service District of Clackamas County's 2018-2019 fiscal year budget and making appropriations and imposing and categorizing taxes for the period of July 1st, 2018 through June 30th, 2019. Laura.
Good morning, Commissioners. Before you is a resolution and a staff report to adopt the budget for the Library District of Clackamas County for fiscal year 18-19. The Library District Budget Committee met on June 4th, 2018 to hear the budget message, hear public comment, and deliberate on the proposed budget. The Budget Committee approved the budget in the amount of $21,533,051 with a tax rate of 0.3974 per thousand of assessed value. As per Oregon budget law, a notice of this meeting and a financial summary of the approved budget was published in the Clackamas Review on June 20th, 2018. And with that, I'd like to respectfully recommend adoption of the library district budget for fiscal year 18-19.
Any clarifying questions? Seeing none, I'll open the public hearing and ask if anyone would like to testify on this matter. Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing and entertain a motion.
I move we approve the actions and adopt the 2018-2019 budget for the Library Service District of Clackamas County as presented in the resolution.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the action and adopt the 2018-2019 budget for the Library Service District of Clackamas County as presented in the resolution. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. The next item, I'll announce that the board will adjourn as the Library Service District of Clackamas County and convene as the North Clackamas Park and Recreation District for the next item.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is to consider a resolution adopting the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District's 2018-2019 fiscal year budget and making appropriations and imposing and categorizing taxes for the period of July 1st, 2018 through June 30th, 2019. And we have Mr. Scott Archer here to present this item to you.
Thank you, Don. Good morning, NCPRD Board of Directors. Before you is the adoption of the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District budget for fiscal year 2018-2019. The NCPRD Budget Committee met on June 4th, 2018 to receive the budget message, hear public comment, and deliberate on the proposed budget. At that time, the Budget Committee approved the proposed budget in the amount of $46,091,052 with a tax rate of 53.82 cents per thousand. Subsequently, as you're well aware, upon receiving notice from the Department of Revenue of their potential decision at that time to rescind the approval of the Happy Valley withdrawal from the district, the Budget Committee the Budget Committee held a second meeting on June 19th, 2018 to receive, deliberate, and hear public comment on an amended budget which anticipates Happy Valley remaining in the district. The Budget Committee approved that revised budget in the amount of $49,488,140 with a tax rate of 53.82 cents per thousand. And then, of course, the DOR formally issued notice to rescind its approval of Happy Valley's withdrawal from NCPRD on June 19th. Per Oregon budget law, a notice of this meeting and a financial summary of the approved budget with that amended budget amount that I noted has been published in the Oregonian on June 20th, 2018. With that, I would respectfully recommend your adoption of the NCPRD proposed budget for fiscal year 2018-19. Thank you.
Great. Do any of the commissioners have any clarifying questions? Seeing none, I'll open the public hearing and ask if anyone would like to testify on this matter. Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing and entertain a motion.
I move we approve the actions and adopt the 2018-2019 budget for the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District as presented in the resolution.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the action and adopt the 2018-2019 budget for North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District as presented in the resolution. Any further discussion?
Chair?
Yes.
Just want to acknowledge the interesting road we've been on this year with the Parks District in light of the actions taken by the State Department of Revenue and so forth. And so we are in a time of uncertainty, but we are following the directions of the Department of Revenue to best navigate how we pass this budget and how we, and the tax we apply in the geographic areas in which that is applied. So I don't think we have any choice other than follow the state's directions. So with that, I'm prepared to approve the budget.
Your finger's on the button.
Yeah, it's on the button.
Commissioner Schrader.
Yeah, this has really been a very awkward situation, I think. And I do think, and I agree with Commissioner Savas, that we really don't have any leeway with this. I know that the county has never objected to Happy Valley moving forward with this, but the process evidently that they followed according to the Department of Revenue, was not the legitimate process to follow. So we are kind of in limbo at this point. So I think what we will do is continue to offer those services until we get the process straightened out. And assuming that Happy Valley wants to actually have its own parks district, it will take a little longer to work that out. But again, I really want to stress this was a directive from the Department of Revenue. It was not a directive from the Board of County Commissioners. And I think that I think my colleagues and I would agree we certainly want to be cooperative with the wishes of the city. So there'll be more to come on this issue, and I will support the budget today.
Commissioner Humbertston.
I just want to confirm for the record that the Parks Department is working on refunds for those folks that paid the higher fee under the assumption that there would be a divorce within the park system.
That is correct. We are already processing those, and notices are being sent to those that paid that higher fee that are going to receive a refund. That is in the works at the moment.
Thank you very much.
So you keep track of the names of people who pay? Oh, wow.
We have a registration system that documents all that, yeah.
Thank goodness.
Thank goodness, yeah, that's right. I also, you know, the process is not so simple. The Department of Justice could very likely require a vote of the district.
Revenue.
No, Department of Justice would perhaps ask us to apply a vote to the district. And whatever happens, it has to be in the best interest of the district. That's what's important here. We certainly care about Happy Valley, and we want to make sure they have the services that they need. We were in the process of looking at a master plan. We need to complete that with the citizens of Happy Valley and with the district and decide where to go from here. So I look forward to that process and working to make everybody as happy, a win-win process. So with that, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Thank you very much. Next item, I'd like to announce that we will adjourn as the North Clackamas Park and Recreation District and convene as the development agency for the next item.
Yes, so this next item is a resolution adopting and appropriating funds for the 2018-2019 fiscal year budget for the Clackamas County Development Agency, and we have Mr. Dave Queener here to present this to you.
No, not quite.
Good morning. Pleased to be here this morning to present the 2018-19 Clackamas County Development Agency budget. The Development Agency is the urban renewal authority for the county, and we are charged with implementing 3 urban renewal plans for the county. That includes the Clackamas Town Center area, the Clackamas Industrial area, and the North Clackamas Revitalization area. Funding is typically provided through tax increment financing, a dedicated revenue source supporting the plan implementation in these 3 plan areas. However, tax increment financing is only collected for the North Clackamas Revitalization area. The other 2 plan areas, those levies have been terminated. The budget before you today, totaling $61,040,247, encompasses appropriations for these 3 plan areas. The Development Agency Budget Committee reviewed the budget document on June 4th and recommends your approval. Notice of these proceedings have been published in local newspapers as required by budget law. And with that, I respectfully request your approval of a resolution adopting and appropriating funds for the fiscal year 2018-2019 Clackamas County Development Agency budget.
Great, Dave. When Don was reading that, I had in my head he was going to read Dan Johnson, because that's what it says.
That's what it says there.
And then when he said Queener, I thought, no, that's not right. But anyway.
Well, we definitely made an improvement, didn't we?
Thanks, Don.
There you go. That's right.
All right. Do any commissioners have any clarifying questions on this matter? Okay, I'll open the public hearing and ask if someone would like to testify. Close the public hearing and I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve the actions and adopt the 2018-2019 budget for the Clackamas County Development Agency as presented in the resolution.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the action and adopt the 2018-2019 budget for the Clackamas County Development Agency as presented in the resolution. Any further discussion? See none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. With that, we'll announce that we will adjourn as the Development Agency and convene as the Clackamas County, my favorite, Service District Number 5, street lighting for the next 2 items.
I forgot my sunglasses.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. And we do have Wendy Coriel here to present these next 2 items for you. The first is a resolution adopting and appropriating funds for the 2018-19 fiscal year budget for Clackamas County Service District Number 5. Go ahead, Wendy.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Wendy Coriel, representing Clackamas County Service District Number 5. Today, I am before you requesting that the board adopt the fiscal year 2018-2019 budget for Clackamas County Service District Number 5. The board resolution before you today is for adopting the budget for Service District 5 and appropriating funds in the amount of $3,883,238. The budget before you today for adoption is the budget reviewed and approved by the Budget Committee during the Budget Committee hearing on June 4th, 2018. And the notice for today's hearing was duly advertised in the June 20th, 2018 Clackamas Review. Mission of the district is to provide street lighting in the unincorporated areas of Clackamas County and also in the city of Happy Valley. The district contracts with PGE for the design, installation, maintenance, and operation of those streetlights, and those costs are passed on to those served by the district through assessments that go out in the November property tax statements. Each year, the district reviews each rate structure, and last year, the district decreased rates since a 5-year forecast showed it to be more than adequate to operate the district. And the 5-year forecast for this year shows that another 2% decrease will also provide adequate ending fund balance for the district to operate. With that, that ends my presentation. On behalf of Service District Number 5, I respectfully request approval of the board resolution adopting the budget and appropriating funds in the amount of $3,883,238 for Clackamas County Service District Number 5.
Well, I appreciate so seldom is there a reduction in rates. So I appreciate you bringing that issue to light.
So to speak.
So to speak. Any clarifying questions? With that, I'll open the public hearing and ask if anyone would like to testify on this matter. So seldom we have anybody testify on this district anyway. Not surprised. With that, close the public hearing and entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve the actions and adopt the 2018-2019 budget for the Clackamas County Service District Number 5 as presented in the resolution.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded that, I'm lost. Right here, okay. We approve the action and adopt the 2018-2019 budget for the Clackamas County Service District Number 5 as presented in the resolution. Any further discussion? With that, all those opposed, all those in favor, gosh, I'm tired already. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Thank you very much. See you next time.
So
Now it's next time.
Now it's next time.
Actually.
Oh,
Doing great. I know.
and next,
This is another item, and I noticed things were getting a little too bright here for Commissioner Savas. He had to-
And I was, because I thought it was either too dark or too light. I don't know why Chair Bernard was struggling to see the language there in the script, but I do have his glasses to make sure it doesn't darken his, but, and we actually have refrained from the jokes on how illuminating this whole topic has been.
I said, thanks for putting light on the subject.
You realize what the motto of the district is, don't you?
What's that?
And let there be light.
All right, let's,
This could really deteriorate quickly.
long day.
Generating,
Okay,
guys,
so
come
this
on.
next resolution is for setting rates for street lighting service charges. and Clackamas County Service District Number 5. Again, Wendy, anything you need to add with this?
Yes, I'm back. Wendy Coriel, Clackamas County Service District Number 5. Now that the 2018-19 budget is approved, the board needs, or the district needs to hold a public hearing on setting rates and for the proposed 2018-19 budget. The Service District Budget Committee approved a recommendation for the proposed rate structure as it's illustrated in the attached proposed board resolution and budget report, and this rate schedule was duly advertised in the Clackamas Review on June 20th, 2018. Staff is recommending that the Board of County Commissioners acting as in the capacity of governing board for the Clackamas County Service District Number 5 approve this board resolution and public hearing setting rates for Clackamas or for street lighting service charges, which will adopt the new rate structure for Clackamas County Service District Number 5. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
I can't quite see it. It's so dark. Oh, my sunglasses were on. So, any questions? Let's see. So I'll open the public hearing and ask if anyone would like to testify on this very serious matter. Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing and entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move setting the rates for street lighting and service charges in Clackamas County Service District Number 5 as presented in the resolution.
Second.
It's moved and seconded that we set the rates for street lighting service charges in Clackamas County Service District Number 5 as presented in the resolution. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries, and thank you for your presentation today. With that, I'll announce that the board will adjourn as Clackamas County Service District Number 1 and convene as the governing body of water environmental services for the next 3 items.
Yes, so I'll invite Mr. Greg Geis, the Director of Water Environment Services, up to the dais. The first item here is a resolution adopting and appropriating funds for the 2018-2019 fiscal year budget for water environment services. And of course, this is the first year that we are adopting a budget for 3 former service districts. I guess they're still really service districts, but they're consolidated together in a partnership. So, go right ahead.
Exactly. Hi, good morning. My name is Greg Geist. I'm the Director of Water Environment Services. I will say that people have occasionally made jokes about our line of work as well, so feel free. And Don is correct. Thank you, Board, for your support over the last year and a half. We have gone from 3 separate entities with budgets to now a single one, and that is WES, and that's what we're going to contemplate today. The WES budget for fiscal year 18-19 was put in front of our advisory committee, the WES Advisory Committee, on May 24th with unanimous approval, and our official budget committee on June 4th, again with unanimous approval. Some of the highlights, overall it's a $158.6 million budget. Much of that is reserves. We're proposing a 3.9% rate increase this fiscal year, adding 4 employees, going from a count of 106 to 110. We've got $43 million in capital expenditures scheduled for this coming year, doing a lot of work on the Kellogg refurbishments, the digester at Tri-City, and our flagship surface water program project at Carly Creek. I think that's about all I have. So with that, I respectfully request that you approve the fiscal year 18-19 budget for Water Environment Services.
Great, thanks for flushing through this issue. With that, any questions?
I have just one comment, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, no.
No, I'm going to behave, but wait till next year. No, I wanted to commend you publicly and on the record for you and your financial team's efforts in achieving a AAA rating for WES. I think you should be commended for that, and that it will also save us a lot of money when we go out for bonding to do the digester on the rates. So it's very much appreciated, and we want to recognize the hard work your team has done. Thank you.
Thank you. I will pass that along.
Thank you. Any other questions? With that, I'll open the public hearing and ask if anyone would like to testify on this matter. Chris, nothing? With that, I'll close the public hearing and entertain a motion.
I move we approve the actions and adopt the 2018-2019 budget for Water Environment Services as presented in the resolution.
Second.
It's moved and second that we approve the action and adopt the 2018-2019 budget for the Water Environmental Services as presented in the resolution. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Next item.
Okay, the next item is a board order amending and adopting rates and charges for water environment services. Mr. Geist?
Thank you. So the rates that are reflective of the 3.9% increase for water environment services. Our surface water rates went from $6.75 or $6.70 per month to $6.95. Our wholesale treatment rates, which is the charges that we charge to the Tri-City cities, Gladstone, Westland, and Oregon City, went from $22.15 to $23, and then our kind of full boat wholesale retail charges that we charge in what we're calling Rate Zone 2, Happy Valley in particular, and unincorporated Clackamas County, went from $46.35 a month to $48.15 a month. With that, I respectfully request that you approve.
Any questions? Seeing none, I'll entertain, open the public hearing and ask if anyone would like to testify on this matter. Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing and entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move we amend and adopt the rates and charges for water environment services as presented in the board order.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's moved and second that we amend and adopt the rates and charges for water environmental services as presented in the board order. Any further discussion? I'd like to add that this hearing and this budget in particular, I thought we might have some testimony on, but we actually had none. So this is a big change. Water environmental services, one budget combined into one organization. Is it a 190?
It is.
A 190 organization, and it will save our ratepayers a lot of money, and it'll, over time, and it provides a lot of opportunity to, work together to keep those rates down and to maintain adequate service and service levels. So, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. The next item is also yours.
Yes, so this is a board order establishing system development charges for water environment services for fiscal year 2018-2019.
Thank you. We did have modest increases to our system development charges. We are in the final year of a 5-year ramp up, or 5 or 3, I should probably check. Basically, a few years ago, the Rate Zone 1, the Tri-City area, recommended that we ramp up the system development charges from about $3,200 up to $3,800. We're in the final year of doing that. For Rate Zone 2, CCSD number 1 formerly, we're simply applying our 3.9% increase across the board also to the SDCs. We will be having additional discussions throughout or later on this fiscal year with the advisory committee and with a whole host of folks about our system development charges, and we'll be likely be bringing that back to the board for action.
Okay. Any questions?
Yes, I have one. Are we, because we do not recognize or change in the budget process up here, SDC changes or charges, is this a one-time this year only because Wes is now representing it as opposed to the districts individually? Or will we be separately calling out SDCs for West from here forward in the budget approval process?
I assume that we will do it annually.
Okay. It's unique because the Parks District has SDCs. We don't have a separate approval for that as we do other departments. So, which leads me to my next question, and that is, Water Environmental Services is not a district. Are we calling it an agency? Are we calling it an organization? When we describe it, it's not proper to call it a district. So what do we call the organization now?
I refer to it as a partnership.
Partnership.
Yes.
Okay. A partnership of the districts.
Yes.
Okay. That answers my question.
Okay, so have I done the motion yet?
No.
No.
Okay, with that, I'll entertain, open the public hearing? I don't know if I did this either. Open the public hearing and ask if anyone would like to testify on this matter.
I'm sorry?
No, nothing. With that, I'll close the public hearing and entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move we establish the system development charges for water environment services for fiscal year 2018-19 as presented in the board order.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we establish system development charges for water environmental services for fiscal year 2018-2019 as presented in the board order. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Now I'd like to announce that the board will adjourn as the Clackamas County Water Environmental Services and reconvene as the Board of County Commissioners for the remainder of the meeting. And, Mary, appreciate it if you would read the consent agenda by title only.
Okay. It's time. Today's consent agenda. Under Health, Housing, and Human Services, approval of a construction contract with Civil Works Northwest for the Shafford Street Construction Improvement Project. Approval of a professional services agreement with Passport to Languages for interpretive services for Clackamas County Health Center patients. Approval of an intergovernmental agreement with Douglas Education Service District for access to the early learning reporting system and training to utilize the system. Approval of a local recipient grant agreement with Northwest Family Services for children of incarcerated parents and parenting inside-out services. Approval of a professional technical and consultant services agreement, amendment number 4, with Lines for Life for crisis intervention and triage call coverage. Approval of an agency services contract with NARA Northwest for cultural specific mental health services. Approval of an intergovernmental agreement with South Metro Area Regional Transit, a Department of the City of Wilsonville for transportation services to residents living in Villebois Community Housing Site. Approval of an agency services contract with Asian Health Services Center for culturally specific mental health services. Approval of an agency services contract with Lutheran Community Services Northwest for culturally specific mental health services. Approval of a professional technical and consultant services contract with Northwest Housing Alternative for supported housing services. Approval of amendment number 3 to the agency services contract with Compass Group US, doing business as Bateman Community Living for food services for 5 Clackamas County Older American Act Nutrition Program sites. Approval of a grant renewal amendment number 1 from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development Coordinated Housing Assessment Access System. Approval of a grant renewal amendment number 1 with the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development Continuing of Care Program for the Hope One Leasing Program for the purpose of providing permanent housing. Approval of a grant renewal amendment number 1 from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development Continuum of Care Program for the Hope 2 Leasing Program for the purpose of providing permanent housing. Approval of a grant renewal amendment number 1 from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development Housing Our Families. Approval of a grant renewal amendment number 1 with the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development Supportive Housing Program for the Housing Our Heroes Project. approval of a grant renewal amendment number 1 with the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development supported housing program for the Rentwell Rapid Rehousing Program. Under the Department of Transportation and Development, approval of an intergovernmental agreement creating the Clackamas County HB 2017 Transit Advisory Committee. Under the Finance Department, approval of a resolution adopting a methodology of calculating costs for living adjustments for non-represented Clackamas County employees. Approval of a lease agreement with CGF Family Limited Partnerships and Clackamas County for Business and Community Services. Approval of a lease agreement with Willamette Building Partnership for Clackamas County for Health, Housing, and Human Services. And Dawn's going to take it from here.
Okay, number 4, approval of a lease agreement with Homestead Building LLC and Clackamas County for Health, Housing, and Human Services. Approval of a lease agreement with OSU Extension Service and Clackamas County. Approval of a contract with DePaul Industries Incorporated for security screening and unarmed security services for county departments. For elected officials, we have approval of previous business meeting minutes. We have the approval of amendment number 1 to the master service agreement with Fieldware LLC to provide inmate notification services for the renewal and reinstatement to the Clackamas County Sheriff's Office Master Agreement and ratifying payment for previously provided services. Request by the Clackamas County Sheriff's Office for approval of an amendment to the Corizon Health Medical Services contract. Approval of contract with VigilNet America LLC for electronic home detention service and equipment for the Clackamas County Sheriff's Office and the Juvenile Department. For the Juvenile Department, approval of intergovernmental agreement with the cities of Gladstone and Milwaukee for diversion panel services. For disaster management, approval of intergovernmental agreement for the lending of fire agency personnel within Clackamas County during an emergency or disaster event. For community corrections, approval of a contract with Bridges to Change Incorporated for the Transitional Housing and Mentors Program. Approval of a contract with CODA Incorporated to provide alcohol and drug assessments of community corrections clients at the Transition Center. For the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District, approval of a professional services contract with 2 Inc. Studio PC for Milwaukee Bay Park final design services. For Water Environment Services, approval of a personal professional services contract between Water Environment Services and Portland Engineering Incorporated for telemetry system integrator of records, SCADA support. And approval of a personal professional services contract between Clackamas County Service District Number 1 and Portland Engineering Incorporated for telemetry system integrator of record, SCADA support. And that concludes the consent agenda for June 28, 2018.
With that, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the consent agenda. Any further discussion?
I have a few quick clarifying questions, if I may, Mr. Chairman. There's a contract for DePaul Industries for security screening and unarmed security services. It would appear that that's a new contract, and I was curious as to why we're not using professional law enforcement. That's my first question.
We're pulling the item here real quick for you.
Or if we're not prepared to answer those questions today, I can do that offline with staff if you prefer.
So, and let me understand your question again.
Well, there's a contract for DePaul Industries for security screening and unarmed security services for the Clackamas County departments such as courthouse facilities, juvenile and justice courts. And I'm curious as to why we're not using professional law enforcement for that service.
I will have to follow up and answer that question for you.
Fair enough. I didn't get a chance to contact departments to ask some of the questions. That's why I'm asking it. What are inmate notification services? There's a contract here for the master service agreement with Fieldware LLC to provide inmate notification services. And I don't quite understand what inmate notification services are.
Hey, you.
Yeah, it's exactly. Is that something also we should take off?
Yes.
Take offline? Would that be
So
easier?
the intent here is to provide notification of court dates and appearances, so we reduce the number of failures to appear. Commissioners will recall that on a monthly basis, I forward to you a regular report
Yes.
from the jail looking at forced releases and also the capacity at the jail. And this is a program in particular that's intended to ensure folks are coming for their court dates and appearances, so we don't have failures to appear.
So really, it isn't people that are inmates, it's people that are on their own release.
I believe that's the case.
Oh, okay. Now it makes more sense. Thank you. Just wanted to comment on the approval of intergovernmental agreement with Gladstone and Milwaukee cities. Appreciate the effort to have cooperation working with our cities on issues, both in terms of law enforcement and our at-risk youth, et cetera. So I wanted to just say that I appreciated those efforts. And then there were two particular contracts in here, one with Bridges to Change and the other with CODA, and it indicates that the funding is state grant in aid and general fund. I would just ask in the future if there's general fund monies being used, that we just get the number included in the report. So that, I'm not sure what for me, that's item number 44, but I probably have things numbered differently.
We should actually have that identified for you.
It normally is.
I'm sure it's in the support materials, but it should be right on the front table for you.
Yeah, because, thank you. That's all I have. Thank you.
Any further questions? I'll entertain a motion.
We already have a motion on the floor,
Did
Mr.
we?
Chairman.
Oh. Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. With that, we're on to county administrator updates.
Okay, well, I've got a couple of items just to share with you very quickly. I'm happy to relay that this coming Monday, July the 2nd, we are opening up our small grants program. That's the application period will start, and as you know, these grants are available to local nonprofits that serve vulnerable populations in Clackamas County. This year, given that you've just adopted the budget, as Chair Bernard was alluding to earlier, we have set aside $300,000 for distribution to community-based organizations in the county for these purposes. This marks the 9th consecutive year that the county will offer this critical program that's designed to assist seniors, housing insecure individuals, veterans in need, families of cancer-stricken children, at-risk youth, and other groups. And more information on this can be found on the front page of our website at www.clackamas.us next week. When the applications open, we must have applications in by August the 16th. And folks who have questions can contact Caroline Hill in the Commissioner's office to follow up. Then I also wanted to identify or recognize a pretty nifty achievement for a member of our Water Environment Services team. Aaron Blue, who works with the West Finance Group, received an honor from the Institute of Certified Management Accountants for her performance on a recent professional exam. Out of nearly 6,000 people who took the test, Aaron was one of only 10 people to receive an award after achieving one of the top scores. So it's her accomplishment was reported in Accounting Today magazine, so get your subscription soon. And I just wanted to say, nice job, Aaron. Really glad that you're on the team. And then finally, just one other thing I mentioned earlier, that next week, July 5th, Thursday, we will not have our regular business meeting because of the 4th of July holiday week.
Great. With that, we'll move on to commissioners. Commissioner Schrader.
Yeah, well, we actually seem to be one of the quickest budget meetings we've had, so I think I can say a few things, but I won't keep it too long. Basically, I've been a busy week. I went to the Oregon City Business Alliance where they actually had folks talking about, ODOT talking about the transportation potential tolling issues, and the title was What the Toll is Going On. It was information I'd already seen before, but it was good to have a refresher course on that. Because our expert is Commissioner Savas, and I'm sure he'll say a few words about that and what the thoughts are as we move forward with the I-205 expansion process. Also, our housing authority had its 80th birthday at Hillside Manor the other day. It was quite the kickoff with music, with speakers, and really looking back at the over 80, close to 80 years, over 80 years that our housing authority has helped people get adequate and fair housing here in Clackamas County. Commissioner Savas and I attended the Willamette Falls Legacy Project meeting. It was a pretty short meeting, but things are moving ahead very nicely. They gave us an entire outline of the touch points. And so we are hoping, let's see, Commissioner, is it June of 2019 that we think there may be groundbreaking? I don't have it in front of me.
Yeah, I think that's next critical date.
Next critical date where we're going to see the movement forward. That's going to be transformative for the economic, I think, well-being not only of Oregon City, Clackamas County, but the region. So that's been moving ahead. Last evening, I attended our Housing and Homelessness Task Force. It was an excellent conversation. I was very glad to have folks from the realtors and from the Home Builders Association be there with the rest of our advocates to really help us give us a full perspective from their point of view as well of what we can be doing to cope with the housing crisis. In particular, we're asking them to ask their membership to tell us what are their barriers to building housing that people can purchase and buy. And I think that will really help us inform our policies as we move forward, and I think it's a very important element to keep in the process. And I know Commissioner Fisher was there for a while with me as well last night listening in. Also, Commissioner Fisher and I did have an opportunity to meet with Evan Polk. Is it Evan? Is it Evan? Evan Polk. He is our sustainability fella, and we're curious about taking a look at some of the other policies that we have pulled together in years past, dusting them off, refreshing them, and looking about how we can be more energy efficient in Clackamas County. We are leaders in energy efficiency. Our two buildings here are Silver LEED certified. With Commissioner Humbrinson, we're looking at cross-laminated timber as a material that we'll be using, we hope, to build new buildings on this campus. And I think that we can really help at the national level really give people information about what best practices are in energy efficiency and sustainability. Also, last week we did talk about the transitional shelter operation for our veterans. That's been a year or more coming. I want to thank our policy advisor, Emily Kepler, because it was all her work that really, as a project manager in a way, she stretched herself. She's kept this on track. Fingers crossed we should be opening it soon. And I think it's all of our commitment to help our veterans here. I know that when I was here last time as a commissioner, all the veterans issues were starting to emerge. And I remember pushing back saying, no, this is going to be an issue. It's going to be a very big issue, because of our folks coming back from places like Iraq and Afghanistan, still being deployed to places like Turkey for special ops things. That this continues to be an issue, and I'm so happy that I was helpful in making those issues rise to the top for this commission. And finally, let's do first our word of the week. Fiscal. There we go. Adjective.
That was the right one for today.
Yes, it was. That was thanks to Kevin, who always watches out for the word of the week. Of or relating to taxation, public revenues, or public debt, fiscal policy, the city's fiscal requirements, in our day and age, the county's fiscal requirements, of or relating to financial manners, fiscal. Do you know it comes from the Latin word fiscalis, which had originated in the mid-1500s? And because of the spirit of the day, we will continue to be fiscally sound and prudent with your taxpayer dollars. So that's the message of the day. Let's go on to arts and culture activities in the county. Okay, Mount Hood Museum presents Social History Happy Hour. The geology of Mount Hood National Forest geologist Ryan Cole will present the fascinating geology of our area. Beer and wine available for purchase. Mount Hood is kind of a quiescent volcano, and every so often it kind of spouts steam up on the top of the mountain, so it's something I think would be really fascinating to go to. Saturday, June 30th, 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. at the Mount Hood Museum and Cultural Center. Clackamas Repertory Theater presents Sense and Sensibility. This reimagined version of the famed English novelist Jane Austen's Sense and Sensibility is both playful and true to the classic tale. Kate Hamill's new adaptation is wildly funny, with only 10 actors playing multiple characters of the British landed gentry. This production was partially funded by a Clackamas County Cultural Coalition project grant. It's actually has already started Thursday through Saturday, June 28th through Sunday, July 1st, 2:30 at the Osterman Theater on the Clackamas Community College campus. And finally, Lakewood Theater of the Arts in Lake Oswego is having its opening of Chess this Friday, July 6th, and that will run through August 12th. And it is, believe it or not, I can't wait to see this one, it is a Cold War musical with 2 chess players. Never seen it before. I'm curious to see how it will go, particularly in the interesting times that we live in. So, Commissioner Fisher, I know you'll mention some more arts things.
No, I don't have anything to mention except that my husband did tour in chess many, many years ago, and he knows the show very well, says it's one of the best shows ever. Loved it, and I really want to go see it. So are you going to go on opening night?
Oh, yeah, well, I'm actually out of town opening night, but go ahead
I
and
would
go.
love for us to coordinate our tickets, because
Okay.
I would love to see it with you. I know it will be a show that will have lots of good discussion.
Okay, we'll make that happen. Okay.
Commissioner Savas, you're up.
As a former chess player, tell that a lot of people aren't necessarily riveted by watching chess, but I'd be interested to see how that plays out in a.
We should all go then.
Yeah, we can notice it as a public meeting.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, certainly had a busy week. A week ago, yesterday or tomorrow, a week ago tomorrow, we were. And I want to thank Chair Bernard and Commissioner Fisher for going down to Eugene. We met down there on Friday and toured the Eugene's transitional housing facilities, as well as their new Emerald Village, which was a concept just a few years ago, which is really a tiny home community. So if you look at the entire package of what they're doing, basically started out with veterans primarily, and as what we're trying to do with the transitional shelter and moving them into permanent housing, into bigger and better places, and moving up and out of the situation they're in, and use that as a model to grow their housing for women, children, and others that are in need of housing. And the Emerald Village aspect, the permanent housing, were basically tiny homes, about 22 units on 1 acre of land that they did, very affordably, very impressive. And I think that maybe even our planning staff might want to look at some of the things that they did as far as permitting that, and maybe see if we can't learn something there. I do understand our planning commission is moving forward with ADUs right now and language in our zoning ZDOs to allow that. So it was great to see the progress they made on that. We've done a lot of things. I won't mention everything that we did, but following on that note on housing, Saturday, late Saturday, I got an opportunity to spend time with some folks at the Father's Heart Ministry in Oregon City, and learned a lot about it. I've heard it, but I actually visited the site and saw what they did, and great work, and heard from a number of people that were formerly homeless, which went through their process and helped in actually now becoming part of our homeless shelter efforts in feeding, housing, clothing, and so forth. So it was a very touching evening to spend with some people that are really just trying to help others and themselves out. lot of press right now about the tolling. Last evening at around 4:57, I finally got the summary of what took place on Monday, and I was trying to describe to my colleagues at the business meeting on Tuesday, our work session, what took place there. And interesting to read the pages of the summary, and there'll be a final report here, hopefully within a week. But I think it's fair to say that there were a lot of questions that were tackled, and almost every question that was asked that was in the packet was actually reworded, and we spent a lot of time rewording what those questions were. And in the end, even what was put forth and what was changed, some of these things that were voted on are actually in conflict with one another. So while people voted for a particular option, it was in complete conflict with another option that was voted on. So I guess it's fair for the press to say that the committee collectively voted for certain options of tolling to move forward, and really that was a recommendation to the Oregon Transportation Commission. However, most of us voted no on a number of the options. So it needs to be pointed out that somehow, I don't know how the OTC will reconcile what the recommendation was or recommendations were, but I think I did a good job of trying to reflect what I heard from both my colleagues on the commission, but also the citizens in Clackamas County, and our recommendation to study tolling or studying funding and tolling in the mitigation aspects of how to do 205 and to build the capacity, particularly to repair or replace that bottleneck in the bridge. In concert with. There were a number of people that did not want to do that. Some of our partners, our regional partners, who have somewhat suggested they supported our project all along, the 205 project, in the end submitted a letter saying they did not really support any of the revenues of tolling going towards capacity. I'll say that again. Our partners who emanated that they would support our projects put forth a proposal and voted on things that would not allow any tolling revenue to go towards any capacity in the system whatsoever, other than transit capacity by at least one of them. So 25 members on this committee, it's probably fair to say that there were 25 different opinions, and the votes were all over the map. And there were a number of no votes. I, too, voted no on several of those. But there were a number of folks that want to institute tolling as soon as possible and toll all of 205 and all of I-5, and again, not spend any money on those revenues. So we will be testifying, I imagine, collectively at the Oregon Transportation Commission on July 12th. And more to come on this as the state determines how they're going to do this. But again, for those who don't know, the state mandated that we do toll these facilities, and wanted to get suggestions. And our issue, again, was safety and diversion, and making sure those dollars goes towards the capacity that we need to make our economy grow, and to lessen the burden of all the counties in the state, to lessen the burden our Clackamas County residents have in particular on our longest travel commute times in the state. Clackamas County has the longest travel commute times of any county in the state. Our citizens have to go through that. And that has registered, as we saw a couple weeks ago when our staff presented to us, the health impacts of what that does to us from a stress standpoint, from an air quality standpoint, and our quality of life with our time that we're available to spend with our families. So a lot of impacts on transportation that affect our lives. So I'll end there today. I do want to say that on July 4th, I will be attending the July 4th parade in Lake Oswego, followed by, in the evening, I will be at the Westland event with a couple of my colleagues as well. That will be at the Westland Willamette Park event there in the evening. I want to just mention to folks that when I was young, I was the oldest person in my neighborhood and had a lot of younger children, kids, and not all kids are really like fireworks, by the way. Some are scared to death of it. So just be aware of that, and we always made sure that they stayed in the house. And let's not forget our cats and dogs as well. It's always respectful to. I mean, on the evening of July 4th, people expect that people will light off fireworks, but when they light off fireworks on days that are not fireworks days and are really loud, they scare cats and dogs. And actually, there are more cats and dogs that are lost because of the trauma of all that noise. So we always make sure we get our pets inside well in advance of the evening, before dusk, and consider that they don't adjust to that very well. With that, have a very safe and happy July 4th holiday.
I have one question. So I assume they talked about tolling affordability too.
Not on Monday. We certainly talked about the impacts, the cost impacts, the mitigation impacts, and there's so much detail to this, and thank you, Chair, for bringing that up. That has been one of our factors of how that impacts our low-income citizens, both in Clackamas County and the region, and that's part of our reason why, and Chair Bernard has been really a champion of this, is saying that let's look at really express lanes, not tolling all the lanes. And the beauty in that is that people that can't afford to toll will have an option to take what would be a free lane for the roads we already paid for, by the way, that they would have that option. And so that's something that we tried to pitch, but because of the agenda and most of the time in the meeting going towards how we word the questions, very little time was spent. I had actually no opportunity to actually advocate for express lanes.
All right. Well, thank you. Commissioner Fisher.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The week has gone by since we as a board made a statement regarding the federal policy on immigration, and I know that all of us have received some emails. I've received quite a lot of feedback, mostly positive, about us making that statement. Since then, we've had a court decision that has said that families must be reunited in 30 days, which I think is a very positive movement. Also during this week, I don't know about you all, but I have entered into quite a few conversations. People are talking about this a lot, and I really appreciate Nancy Hall, who's here now, who's been at most of our meetings, coming forward today and speaking on this issue, because the dialogue and informing and creating awareness about what's happening is very important. Here locally, this issue affects us. It is a local issue, and we are the electeds that interface with our communities. A few examples are Commissioner Savas and I were at a steering committee for a safe place, and the statistics on families that are Hispanic coming to get support for restraining orders has had a marked decrease. We've also heard that our public health clinics, our walk-in centers, are not seeing families like they have in the past. We've heard stories from our farmers and our nursery owners that workforce is so limited because people are self-deporting, and that crops have literally been wasted because they have not been able to be picked. This is not a partisan issue. This is an issue that is important for all of us, and as elected officials, we are a spokesperson and we interface with our federal elected officials on what's important to us locally. I wanted to just paraphrase a comment from one of the letters that I received from Jim Boland that said, "It is time for every American institution, be they governmental, political, educational, religious, or professional, to formally speak out unequivocally against the cruel and inhumane policies causing immigrant family separations." So regardless of what the policies have been in the past, we are aware that children were being separated from their parents at the border, and because we must agree that caring for our most vulnerable citizens, especially children that have no voice, is so very important, that it is important that we speak. And I want to thank my fellow commissioners for joining me in that. On another note, I had the opportunity of participating with our Volunteer Connections award dinner, and I was quite moved by the stories that I heard from the folks that were sitting around the tables. These are people that provide transportation to elderly and people with disabilities. They're the people that sit down and write the checks and do the financial management. They do benefits coordination. They provide support and simply companionship. So in the midst of the conversations happening at the federal level and at the local level, we can see that we as Clackamas County do provide support, and in some instances, we facilitate the volunteers that are the connection that create the community for folks that are our most vulnerable citizens. So with that, I, again, feel so much pride of being a Clackamas County Commissioner and being able to support these important causes.
Thank you, Commissioner Humberston.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Before I talk about that was the week that was, I would like to make one specific comment somewhat in reference to Commissioner Fisher's remarks. As someone who wore the uniform of this country, and as someone who spent a lifetime defending my community as a law enforcement officer, and as someone who has taken the oath to support and defend the Constitution of the United States of America, probably more times than anybody sitting at this dais, I will not be told what I cannot say or what I can say or what issues I will or will not address by anyone. I fought for the right, as have other people, to speak my mind on any issue I so choose. I have no problem with other residents doing exactly the same. That is the same privilege that I enjoy, and I expect them to enjoy it also. Now, I will move on to that was the week that was. I attended the AOC subcommittee meeting on cap and trade this week, and I'll be brief. Basically, tried to keep it focused on minimizing what will be done with cap and trade when and if the state does impose that, which there is every reason to believe they probably will. So we can minimize the damage, particularly to our rural communities, and maximize the benefits where we can, and keep whatever revenues are brought in focused on improving transportation, among other things. Also attended the Oregon Forest Resources Institute workshop in Newburgh and learned more about forest management, spraying, and those kinds of things, so that as we go forward looking at timber issues and harvesting and those kinds of things, I can speak with some authority on how things actually work. Enjoyed attending the amateur radio event this week in Lake Oswego, the 100th anniversary of the Boy Scouts at our Veterans of Foreign Wars building here in Clackamas County. Enjoyed the Housing Authority event. Congratulations to 80 years of service. And a couple of CPO meetings where I got the opportunity to hear from citizens on issues that were important to them. For the 4th of July, I intend to enjoy the Canby Parade and also the West Lynn celebration, and I hope that others will enjoy their 4th of July celebration and remember what it is actually about, and that the First Amendment to the Constitution is every bit as important as any other amendment to the Constitution. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Oh, the dog. Thank you.
Oh.
This is Cece. An adorable lap dog that loves to give kisses. She can be shy at first. However, once she gets to know you, she will be your shadow. She is a great size and walks well on a leash. She would really like a quiet home so she could be the center of your attention. She loves belly rubs. She needs a home with children 13 years old or older. That way she doesn't get overwhelmed. If she sounds like a good fit for you, please go and visit her today. For more information about Cece and other adoptable dogs, please contact Clackamas County Dog Services at 503-655-8628 or www.clackamas.us/dogs. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, happy 4th of July, and like Commissioner Humberston mentioned, don't forget why we are celebrating the freedom of this nation. As far as other comments that we made last week, you know, I think we've made a really strong effort not to be political. However, we have a moral obligation to address this. I mean, if when Hitler was separating the Jews, the children from the parents, the citizens of Germany should have spoke up. They didn't. And, you know, most of those people separated never ever got together again. Most of them never lived much longer than when they were separated. But, you know, the truth is that we ought to have a discussion about who is in our, you know, who are in the jails or in the facilities. They're actually political prisoners. That's truly what they are. Politics put them there. And it's not that they're illegal, because the truth is, if you come here and ask for asylum, that is legal. But if they're separated and putting in facilities, that's political. So there is a fine line that has been stepped over, and they are political prisoners. And I've actually been pretty proud of this country over the years that we don't have political prisoners. We probably do. I just don't know about them. But these are political prisoners. But, you know, this is something that hopefully we will resolve, or we are resolving. And I don't have any children, but I can't imagine what it's like to have your children pulled out of your arms and separated for some months now. So with that, happy 4th of July, be safe, and like Paul and Ken mentioned, watch out for your animals. I have one dog that will be on the bathroom floor and shuts the door behind it, and another one that could care less. So happy 4th of July. With that, we're adjourned.